Welcome back to another My Hero Academia final season breakdown, this time going over the third episode titled The Final Boss. Of course, we are going to be breaking down the episode as well as the entire season, going over all of the Easter eggs and references, so be sure to Detroit, smash that like button and subscribe to the Kiroki channel so that you don't miss any My Hero Academia final season breakdowns. Now, the episode begins where the last episode left off, with Bakugo coming back from the dead. All Might remembers what Sir Night-Eye had told him about his death all those years ago, as All For One begins to pull the hero apart. We see that while this is happening all over the world, people are either watching or going about their everyday lives. But the one thing that remains constant from all of them is their breathing and prayers, all representing their wishes and desires for a certain future, with some sending energy in wishing for All Might to live. Deku and Bakugo move into action as Bakugo blasts his way to Deku, surprising Shigaraki by the way the two are working together in order to desperately save All Might. Deku grabs Bakugo's hand, redirecting him to All Might's direction. The second appears to Deku, warning him of the blowback he will receive from activating Gear Shift on Bakugo, and that he has to use it after he found the right path to victory. The second notices All Might's vestige changing and leaves Deku alone. Deku uses Gear Shift on Bakugo, launching him towards All Might. Shigaraki tells Deku that he knows they aren't going to save All Might, that the All Might within One For All used to appear all faint and fuzzy because he was still alive, but now the All Might within him is looking more solid, meaning with All Might's death, his vestige will become whole. All Might had showed the world a dream, and with his death, the dream is over. The world almost stands still for a second as the wind blows, with Deku watching Bakugo make his way to All Might, praying for him to be saved. We see the energy from everyone's wishes, prayers, and love for All Might channel into Bakugo, as he has now become a symbol of everyone's love for All Might. Their hopes and beliefs on top of his own want to save his hero pushes Bakugo to do the impossible and save All Might. The vestige goes back to normal, and the second realizes that this must be Deku's path to victory, and Bakugo yells that it's time to win. All Might once again sees the ghost of Sir Night-Eye, and he asks him if this wasn't when his death was supposed to happen. Sir Night-Eye tells him that it was, and that this was where his dream died. But fate was reshaped, and his promise to live is still intact. All Might feels he should be dead because everyone knows the old master is meant to die after passing the torch, a reference to the classic death of a mentor trope used in comic books and manga, where the mentor of the hero dies, forcing the hero to step up and continue the journey without them. Night-Eye tells All Might that he's read too many comic books. All Might then questions if this is what he is making his own hallucinations say, which goes back to what I said in the last breakdown, that this might not be a hallucination at all, because of Bakugo having a similar experience with the vestige of All Might. If it was a hallucination, why didn't he just imagine All Might himself instead of his vestige? And that's because Bakugo temporarily becoming the 10th user of One For All in the Heroes Rising movie led him to form a sort of spiritual connection with All Might's vestige that allowed him to show up when Bakugo was going to die. Then now with All Might seeing the ghost of Nana Shimura and Night-Eye instead of someone alive like Deku, their experiences tells us that this is actually something more than meets the eye, as it is their souls interacting with each other. Souls that can only interact when someone is in a near-death state, like how All Might and Bakugo were. Some might say that this is a reach, but from everything we've seen about One For All For One, and the Vestige Realm, there is this spiritual plane of existence that cannot be reached through normal means. Horikoshi had built this spiritual connection up with quirks and them being tied to a person's soul to prepare us for the spiritual warfare to come between Deku and Shigaraki and their connection with One for All and All for One. That was teased to us back in season 6. Night Eye tells All Might that he is a hero, but he is also human. All Might can't possibly die so readily, and All Might is taken out of this spiritual state as Bakugo crash lands on top of a building with All Might. People all around recognize Bakugo from the sports festival as we get cameos from Can't You See Kid and Mahoro along with her brother Katsuma from the Heroes Rising movie. Mahoro being the only one that knows Bakugo by name thanks to Bakugo and Deku saving Naboo Island from 9. Bakugo stands as tiny explosions go off around him, aura farming, and All Might and Bakugo ask each other if the other is okay. An Edshot bursts out of Bakugo's chest like a xenomorph, extremely fatigued from using his body to patch up Bakugo's insides. He tells Bakugo that the repairs he did on him won't come undone, but every breath he takes will inflict hellish agony as his body demands rest and not high movement action. Bakugo thanks Edshot for bringing him back to life, but Edshot claims that he only held Bakugo together. In a flashback, we see that despite Edshot's success in forcibly restarting his heart and lungs, Bakugo had remained dead. While in his transformation that was eating away at his life, he was forced to weigh his own life against Bakugo's, but then he witnessed a bead of sweat made from Bakugo's quirk rush through his bloodstream and explode within him, which finally brought Bakugo back to life. All Might sees Bakugo's broken arm and informs Bakugo that the kid he was fighting is All for One, since Bakugo pretty much missed out on a lot that's happened during his time being dead. All Might, still paralyzed from Stain's quirk, calls him over to transfer over his armored arm to Bakugo's broken arm to serve as a brace. He calls Bakugo by his hero name, Great Explosion Murder God Dynamite, and falls to the ground, wishing he could have gave Bakugo more. Bakugo genuinely smiles, I believe for the first time in the entire series, because All Might truly recognizes Bakugo for the hero he is, respecting his name, and this time he got to be the one to save All Might, keeping his legacy going, making up for being the one to end All Might by causing him to go into retirement. All things that used to make him feel so self-conscious about himself throughout the series. All for One is extremely angry that his plan isn't going the way he envisioned, but before he can even do anything, Bakugo appears above All for One, yelling that he is the final boss, as all for One can think of is the fact that the wind was meant to blow his way and not the heroes. He then sees a flash of the second user of One for All and is hit with a massive explosion by Bakugo as he says One for All couldn't handle you alone, so he is here to step in and finish the job. Bakugo using All Might's iconic I am here line as a homage to All Might. Blood also spews out of his mouth, which is actually important to highlight because All for One is unable to get anywhere near Bakugo's blood to paralyze him with Stain's quirk. That's because Bakugo's blood all throughout the entirety of his fight with All for One is getting blown around by the storm and blasted to wherever by his own quirk. So All for One never manages to lick any of it because of how hard it was to track, on top of being bullied by Bakugo. For a moment we see that on every front in the war, the heroes have managed to come out on top, besides the Dagobah Arena, which is a Star Wars reference to the Dagobah planet where the battle is still ongoing. Nagant even makes an appearance here, still having faith in Deku. All Might comments on how fast Bakugo had become, and Edshot informs him that when Bakugo was fighting Shigaraki, just for a moment Bakugo had even made Shigaraki fluster from his speed, and that Bakugo must be on the verge of grasping his quirk's evolution. We switch over to Deku and Shigaraki, and Deku notes how in their stalemate, Danger Sense has been keeping him alive, but he still hasn't found a way around Shigaraki's regeneration and ability to kill with a single touch. He knows the next time he uses Gear Shift, the blowback will immobilize him, so he plans to make this final activation count, deciding it's time to end the fight. We see the two heroes and villains go beyond plus ultra to accomplish their goals. All for One flies past Bakugo, ignoring ignoring him, which pisses off Bakugo because he's being treated like some sort of background character. All for One paralleling Bakugo heavily from not only his god complex thanks to his quirk, but also the way he himself used to call those around him extras. All for One being the perfect fit to be Bakugo's villain, and Bakugo in return being the perfect foil to All for One, because a person who he deems as an extra is the one who will become his final boss. Bakugo figures out that the pain from the beads of sweat shooting throughout his whole body and exploding, the locations and intervals of that pain gives him a handle on the timing of those backup blasts of explosions to increase his speed and power. He recklessly makes his way to All for One at high speeds, still trying to master his ability, unable to slow down his speed, catching All for One by surprise. Bakugo feels like he could now overtake Deku. Bakugo's parents see him fighting on the screen, with his mother being the one to know her son is going all out, grinning for absolute victory. All for One doesn't know why Bakugo of all people pisses him off more than All Might, and he realizes that Bakugo looks just like the second user of One for All. He remembers the past where the second said that All for One had been the one to kill Yoichi. His hatred for the second user had brought so many memories back for him, where he can only think that if only the second user had never reached out his hand to Yoichi, his brother would still be alive with him. The second being the One for All user he loathes above anyone else in existence. Bakugo sets off a massive explosion that sends All for One crashing into a wall, and All for One shouts that it's all Kudo's fault. Kudo, of course, being the second user of One for All's name, and Bakugo calls All for One senile, and that he is called Kachan Bakugo. Bakugo finally accepting the nickname given to him by Deku. Now, this episode adapted 3 chapters, them being chapters 404, 405, and 406. Each episode surpassing the last, and man, was this episode a banger with the emotions and overall beautiful animation. Let me know your thoughts on the 3rd episode of My Hero Academia's final season. Is Bakugo your favorite hero? Let me know everything in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to Detroit smash that like button, and if you are new to the Kitoroki channel, then be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on so that you don't miss any My Hero Academia final season breakdowns. With that said, I'll see you all in the next one.